You're going to pay a price for every bloody thing you do, and everything you don't do. You don't get to choose to not pay a price. You get to choose which poison you're going to take. That's it. Rule 1. Stand up straight with your shoulders back. To stand up straight with your shoulders back is to accept the terrible responsibility of life with eyes wide open. It means deciding to voluntarily transform the chaos of potential into the realities of habitable order. It means adopting the burden of self-conscious vulnerability and accepting the end of the unconscious paradise of childhood, where finitude and mortality are only dimly comprehended. It means willingly undertaking the sacrifices necessary to generate a productive and meaningful reality. It means acting to please God in the ancient language. This elegant quote encapsulates the fundamental principle of the first rule. The author actually points out that since all those who live suffer, at one point or the other, and therefore learning to suffer like a man is of fundamental importance to all happiness and progress. He notes the surge of confidence experienced and the residual grit and boldness when attend carefully to your posture, quit drooping and hunching around, speak your mind, put your desires forward as if you had a right to them, at least the same right as others. Walk tall and gaze forthrightly ahead. Dare to be dangerous. Encourage the serotonin to flow plentifully through the neural pathways desperate for its calming influence. People, including yourself, will start to assume that you are competent and able, or at least they will not immediately conclude the reverse. Rule 2. Treat yourself like someone you are responsible for helping. The essence of the second rule is to treat ourselves kindly, to which the author notes, strengthen the individual, start with yourself, take care with yourself, define who you are, refine your personality, choose your destination, and articulate your being. If you don't say what you think, then you kill your unborn self. His principal advice here is to cultivate personal awareness and kindness, to know and treat ourselves as we would a friend. He suggests the need to reward yourself whenever you achieve something worthwhile. Rule 3. Make friends with people who want the best for you. People create their worlds with the tools they have directly at hand. Faulty tools produce faulty results. Repeated use of the same faulty tools produces the same faulty results. In the third rule, Dr. Jordan aims to distill in readers the value of being keen as we choose which people to let into our inner circle. The essence of the rule is to ensure you have around you people that motivate you to be the best possible person you can be. People who are positive and supportive of your aims. At the epicenter of this rule is the need to disassociate with negative influences and instead keep the company of people who root for your success. He points out, if you have a friend whose friendship you wouldn't recommend to your sister or your father or your son, why would you have such a friend for yourself? Rule 4. Compare yourself to who you were yesterday, not who someone else is today. No matter how smart, successful, disciplined, handsome, or good at something you are, there is always going to be someone better than you are. Comparing yourself to other people instead of to yourself will demoralize you and leave you feeling incompetent. He notes that winning at everything is not the ultimate aim. The aim is growing, which he terms as the most important form of winning. He notes we live within a framework that defines the present as eternally lacking and the future as eternally better. If we did not see things this way, we would not act at all. We wouldn't even be able to see, because to see we must focus, and to focus we must pick one thing above all else on which to focus. He continues, perhaps happiness is always to be found in the journey uphill, and not in the fleeting sense of satisfaction awaiting at the peak. The underlying principle here is to concentrate on growth, rather than winning in all domains of your life. And there are many, so many in fact that you cannot win at them all. Rule 5. Do not let your children do anything that makes you dislike them. 2-year-olds, statistically speaking, are the most violent of people. They kick, hit, and bite, and they steal the property of others. They do so to explore, to express outrage and frustration, and to gratify their impulsive desires. More importantly, for our purposes, they do so to discover the true limits of permissible behavior. How else are they ever going to puzzle out what is acceptable? Infants are like blind people searching for a wall. They have to push forward and test to see where the actual boundaries lie, and those are too seldom where they are said to be. The underlying principles learned from this rule is not how to shelter children completely from misadventure and failure, so they never experience any fear or pain, but how to maximize their learning, so that useful knowledge may be gained with minimal cost. The author notes several things, key of which are: it is an act of responsibility to discipline a child. Every child must listen to and obey adults because he or she is dependent on the care that one or more imperfect grown-ups is willing to bestow. If a child has not been taught to behave properly by the age of 4, it will forever be difficult for him or her to make friends. Rule 6. Set your house in perfect order before you criticize the world. Success makes us complacent. We forget to pay attention. We take what we have for granted. We turn a blind eye. We fail to notice that things are changing or that corruption is taking root and everything falls apart. Is that the fault of reality? Of God? Or do things fall apart because we have not paid sufficient attention? The essential lesson in this rule is to start to stop doing what you know to be wrong. Dr. Peterson notes that if you cannot bring peace to your household, how dare you try to rule a city? Rule 7. Pursue what is meaningful, not what is expedient. The successful among us delay gratification. The successful among us bargain with the future. A great idea begins to emerge, taking ever more clearly articulated form in ever more clearly articulated stories. What's the difference between the successful and the unsuccessful? The successful sacrifice. Things get better as the successful practice their sacrifices. The questions become increasingly precise and simultaneously broader. What is the greatest possible sacrifice for the greatest possible good? And the answers become increasingly deeper and profound. The sacrifice of precisely what is loved best. The fundamental principle shared in this rule is that of regulating our impulses, sacrificing what is expedient for what is important and meaningful, because out of this regulation comes true meaning, to which the author notes, meaning gratifies all impulses, now and forever. Rule 8. Tell the truth, or at least don't lie. Lies warp the structure of being. Telling the truth makes us improved beings, and this is the fundamental lesson distilled from rule number 8. As the author notes, to accept the truth means to sacrifice, and if you have rejected the truth for a long time, then you've run up a dangerously large sacrificial debt. If your life is not what it could be, try telling the truth. If you cling desperately to an ideology or wallow in nihilism, try telling the truth. If you feel weak and rejected and desperate and confused, try telling the truth. In paradise, everyone speaks the truth. That is what makes it paradise. Tell the truth, or at least, don't lie. Rule 9. Assume that the person you are listening to might know something you don't. Carl Rogers wrote, "The great majority of us cannot listen. We find ourselves compelled to evaluate, because listening is too dangerous. The first requirement is courage, and we do not always have it." The essential lesson here is to learn to listen to everyone without jumping to premature judgments, as if the person you are talking to is a mine full of knowledge. Dr. Peterson notes, when you are involved in a genuine conversation, you're listening and talking, but mostly listening. To this, he notes that when listened to keenly, people tend to share, openly, that which they are thinking, often time, interesting, amazing, and crazy things, from which you can learn a lot, to a point where no conversation you engage in will be boring. He points out that when a conversation turns boring, it is probably because you are not listening keenly. Rule 10. Be precise in your speech. Confront the chaos of being. Take aim against a sea of troubles. Specify your destination and chart your course. Admit to what you want. Tell those around you who you are. Narrow and gaze attentively, and move forward forthrightly. Be precise in your speech. The ability to articulate your opinions and express yourself is an invaluable skill we should all learn. This is the essence of this rule. Rule 11. Do not bother children when they are skateboarding. In this rule, Peterson bemoans what he interprets as our postmodernist interpretation of the social construct of gender and the role biological differences between women and men. Although highly conflictive and confusing, depending on your take, the essence of the chapter is to illuminate the modernistic desire for gender equality, a statement he defines as a state where we treat men and women equally with equal rights and opportunities. He notes that while equality is good for a society as a whole, we tend to take it too far, with an apt example being our tendency to insist on equal behavior and outcomes, while all the while overlooking the biological differences between men and women. He then goes on to point out what he considers flaws in total equality. Rule 12. Pet a cat when you encounter one on the street. The essence of this chapter is to enjoy life, to pay attention to the little things that make life worthwhile and beautiful. Dr. Peterson notes, hating life, despising life, even for the genuine pain that life inflicts, merely serves to make life itself worse, unbearably worse. Put the things you can control in order, repair what is in disorder, and make what is already good better. The primary aim of this chapter is to distill the element of being present in the moment, which is where the pet a cat statement comes from. To this, Dr. Peterson notes, set aside some time to talk and to think about the illness or other crisis and how it should be managed every day. Do not talk or think about it otherwise. Conserve your strength. You are in a war, not a battle, and a war is composed of many battles. You must stay functional through all of them. When worries associated with the crisis arise at other times, remind yourself that you will think them through during the scheduled period. This usually works.